News Radio 700 WLW.
Half the workers would rather quit and return to the office full time. Half would rather quit than go back to the office full time. Now, maybe you're driving into work today. You did drive into work today, and you thought, my goodness, wasn't it nice at least during the pandemic? The one good thing about the pandemic is I could work from home. And then people found out that ran companies, hey, you could work from home and still be productive. You could work from home and still get the job done. You didn't have to come into this massive building that we were paying rent on and had nobody inside this building that we were actually paying money to come here. And now all of a sudden, a lot of these workers have to go back to work. Survey of more than 2,300 senior managers in the U.S., 2/3 of the people surveyed, 66%, say they want their teams to work on-site full-time as COVID restrictions ease. But 1,000 professionals in another survey, half of those 1,000, they say they want to work from home or quit and look for another job. Would you quit and look for another job, or have you thought about that or done that in the wake of having to go back to the office? Because that drive-in is getting a little more expensive, isn't it? Gasoline? Michael Cups is the executive vice president of Active Ops. It's a global company, and it helps management in process automation. Smart software gives managers the ability to lead remote teams. Michael, how are you on this glorious Monday?
Well, good morning, Ken. Nice to talk to you. And I haven't slapped anyone today, your earlier comment.
Nobody. Hey, I'm just taking a survey on this, just in my own mind. Did you watch that happen in live TV last night, or did you see it on your phone like an hour later?
Yeah, no, I didn't have plans to watch the Oscars. I did see it on Twitter, I think, a bit later, and I still haven't even tuned into it to catch it on YouTube or anything, but I heard about it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if that was a workplace, and in essence, it kind of was. I mean, even though it was, a gala, it involved people in the film industry. Now they're all independent contractors. Something like that happened in the workplace, you'd at least be in HR this morning, right?
Or already out the door, I would think.
Oh, my God. Well, what do you, a lot of people are back on the job right now, and they're getting used to the skills and the disciplines that they had to get, that they operated under before the pandemic, and a lot of people just don't like that, and they're looking for jobs they can work from home. And I'm just wondering, in your encounters with EVP Active Ops, are you noticing that there is, anecdotally or from an evidence standpoint, that there are people walking out the door that they'd rather go someplace else rather than work on the site?
Yeah. Well, we're certainly seeing the sentiment. I don't know if we're seeing it in our data that they're walking off, but there's certainly a lot of movement and attrition. So our customers are looking for the best way to manage both the remote workforce as well as people that do want to return to the office. So, that's where we see the movement. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the most staggering thing I saw was Goldman Sachs CEO said he wanted 5,000 employees back in the New York office, and the week that he demanded that, only 50 to 60% actually showed up.
Well, there was great evidence, though, that productivity from home, if managed correctly, there was not a great fall-off from productivity at the office. Now, I know that's a wide umbrella, many different companies. But if companies went into this and they had a plan and they adapted during the course of remote working, the productivity really didn't fall off all that much, did it?
No, not at all. We saw with our data, and we primarily work with large banks and insurance companies. We saw that they had an initial drop, but that was just people getting connected and figuring out where they're going to set up their laptop. Once they got back online, we actually saw productivity go above where it was when they were in the office. Could have been a number of reasons for that, but it stayed up there. So yes, the answer to your question is people are productive in the remote work, and some people like it, some people don't. But there shouldn't be a difference. I mean, productivity is about you getting the work done, not about where you're sitting.
Exactly. And I would think a company like Goldman Sachs has a lot of office space in New York City, and it's probably paying a lot of rent, if not a lot of tax on that building if they own it. And I think that that's something that virtually you could find virtually anywhere in this country where you've got large office space that businesses have committed to, and so they want fannies and seats in that office to justify either to their shareholders or to the rest of their partners that this office space was an investment and we have to use it. So there's kind of a practical side to real estate in all of this, is there not?
Oh, there's definitely a practical side to it, and I don't think companies were prepared to know what to do with that space, how to optimize it, how to negotiate out of some contracts or whatever the case would be. But there's also just the cost of heating and air conditioning and food and utility, all of those things that the companies have to think about, and it's going to be an interesting shift to be what they do. Now, the Goldman, just to be clear, they're not a customer of ours, so I'm not speaking from that. But what they claimed they wanted people in the office for is to teach the younger employees the ways of Goldman Sachs. So I understand that, but I still think there's collaboration techniques out there that you don't have to be in an office. 5,000 people don't need to be in that same office.
Yeah, a culture, you don't necessarily, and I think that's what you're talking about. You don't necessarily have to have everybody under one roof at one time. I mean, aren't there things you could do remotely where you could say, okay, today we're going to meet here? Now, I don't know if every Goldman Sachs employee could fit under one roof other than perhaps in New York, Madison Square Garden. But, if you just say, look, we're going to meet here and we're going to have this, and it's going to be a social as well as a learning event, then everybody can go their own way. Again, I think that's adapting to what's going on in the marketplace right now.
Absolutely, and it's probably more conducive to learning because they're not kind of surrounded by the other pressures that you mentioned, that could be involved there. And by the way, 5,000 people aren't meeting in an office either. It's small groups of 10 or 12 or 5, and like you just said, those types of meetings can happen anywhere.
Yeah, Michael, the other dynamic here is that you gave us the number of Goldman Sachs workers that came back after being told they have to come back. Take it down to even a company of 100, 150. Retention of employees right now is a real struggle for a lot of companies. People seem to be more concerned, I think, right now with jobs as opposed to careers. And so if you hire somebody, take the time to hire somebody and go through that process, and take the time to train somebody and go through that process. And then 6 months later, that employee decides, well, he or she wants to go someplace else. You're 18 months in the hole trying to fill a job. So I would think that if you're an employer, you would want to go out of your way to keep good employees, whether they're in your office or sitting on behind a laptop at home trying to conduct business, because the price of going out and replacing that particular person would have to be, after a while, enormous when you times it times 10, times 20, times 30. So I don't get why a CEO would want to mandate everybody has got to come back under this roof every day, 5 days a week. I don't get that.
Yeah, I think it falls back to some of the ways that they learned how to manage people, and they learned how to manage people with their eyes, looking at them in an office, and they haven't adapted. But I would say most managers have adapted through the pandemic. They had to, but the executives haven't, because they're not experiencing what they had on a daily basis with that remote worker, who was probably more productive and more in tune and more in touch with the right systems and the right processes. There's nothing different about a remote office versus an in-office worker. Again, it's about just maybe adapting those management expectations a bit, not even expectations, but just the way that they understand where people are and what they're working on and how they're doing and all the well-being. But that attrition cost is amazing, because it's not only all the things you mentioned, it's also recruiter costs and HR time and all of those things. It's staggering to actually force attrition because you have a bias about remote work.
Michael Kupps, Executive Vice President, Active Ops North America. He's our guest. We're talking about remote working and how some companies are now mandating employees go back inside the office now that COVID has waned, and how some employers are just saying no. There's a survey out right now that of 1,000 workers that said, 50% of them said, look, I'm going to or trying to change jobs because I don't want to go back into the office. I like working from home. I was productive working from home. I'll find a company that will let me work from home. And here's the stressors on the employee, who now I think hold a lot of the cards in this particular game. Gasoline in this area of the country is up over $4 a gallon. Summer gas is coming. That means in a lot of areas in this country, the summer blend will increase prices at the pump upwards of 20 cents on the gallon. You have parking. Parking is not cheap in any metropolitan area. and lunch. I mean, people got to eat. They're going to go out and spend, $7, $8, $12 on a lunch, which they could make at home, or they could eat anytime they wanted at home while they were working from home. And so I sense rigidity from management, and I sense from workers, they're just not going to comply with that anymore. And with over 11 million jobs unfilled in this country right now, advantage worker, correct?
Yeah, I think so. For all the reasons you mentioned, health reasons and well-being reasons, they're all the right reasons. I think if managers or companies insist on people coming into the office and they have employees that have expressed that they don't want to, you can almost guarantee that those people are taking the calls from recruiters or listening and looking at job boards and things like that, because they've got one eye maybe on their job, but they have another eye on the next job they can go get that will allow remote work.
Unbelievable. And again, I do think it's generational. But again, as the generations move on, as, for example, baby boomers move on and the next generation comes through and you get into Generation X, Y, and Z, it may change dynamically the way business is conducted in this country, and it sounds like for the better. Michael, good stuff. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Take care. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day. Take care.